But I think really as a YouTuber, especially if who's somebody who does everything by themselves, except for with the editor that I work with, he's on a contractual basis. So I just send him work whenever I have it. If you don't have your life in order, it can be very overwhelming. Like my whole day was thrown off yesterday when I had an approved sponsor come through and say, hey, we need this in 6 days to review and we need you to upload it like yesterday. Like, oh, cool. Thanks for the heads up. So now, I'm working on a sponsor video, but those things happen because they can be very valuable to your channel, in this case, monetarily. So that way I can buy a bunch of chef knives and give them to people. So I want to make sure it happens properly. So with YouTube, it's not the 9 to 5. Like I've done the 9 to 5. I've done AutoCAD work for companies where I just go into the office and I sit there and I look at lines for 8 hours and I lose my mind. This isn't that kind of job.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Designer Future podcast. A very, very special guest on today. Please, man, go ahead, jump straight in and introduce yourself for me.
How's it going, guys? My name is Paul. I go by Chedpk on all of the internet, and I've been a chef for probably about 13, 14 years now. Graduated culinary school in 2007. Immediately after high school, didn't really mess around too much and just jumped straight into the industry. And I recently fell into YouTube, I guess I would say about a year and a half ago. I actually have multiple YouTube channels that I had kind of played with and just uploaded. I've always loved the format. And now I found a way to teach people and hopefully inspire people to cook and be confident in the kitchen. And this is my way of hopefully showing that.
Amazing. So yeah, you mentioned to me just before we started filming that you as a personal trainer as well. So talk to me a little bit about some of the stuff you was doing beforehand and what sort of made you jump into YouTube in the first place. I know you said you got different channels, so definitely like to hear a bit about that as well.
It actually stemmed from my love and hate for the restaurant industry. And because there's always this push-pull, good, evil kind of side to it, where with the restaurant industry, you are always grinding, you're always looking to be better, you're always looking to do better, make that paycheck, whatever the case is. And there was a certain point where I was working mostly corporate and I was helping manage hotels and things like that. So you fall out of love with the food aspect and start looking at numbers more. And to me, that's where I started to not love cooking as much because everything became about the bottom line. How do we save 0.25% here without, sacrificing food quality? Those things kind of really get to you. And so at one point, my wife and we left our hometown of San Diego and she got a killer job out here in the Northwest. And I left the restaurant industry entirely and became a personal trainer instead. And from that, I tried to still try to teach people how to be healthy and eat well and things like that. But I realized that I actually don't like personal training people, but I just like working out. So I left that job and I went back to the food industry. I actually worked in an ice cream factory for about a year for Salt and Straw because I wanted to learn how to make ice cream. It just ended up becoming one of those things. I want to learn how to make really good ice cream. And so I went with them. After that, I ended up taking a job on learning how to make sourdough bread by hand. Did that for a year and a half and just kind of bounced around for a while after the hotel industry for almost 12 years. And my YouTube channel started out of spite. So I will say it started like, if you look at my very first YouTube video that I uploaded to Chedpk, I am very salty. I am one of those people who I sat down and I had another YouTube channel where I was doing kind of like cosplay tutorials and things like that. But it wasn't anything I really wanted to chase. And I watch a lot of YouTube self-help videos and whatever the case is. And one of them, Roberto Blake, he had mentioned, what are you good at? What can you make money off of? And what can you do for the rest of your life that you love? And it was, well, I'm good at cooking. I love anime and I could maybe make this into a living. And so I threw on a chef coat and I started reacting to Food Wars. And I hadn't seen it. So I was like, okay, well, here's a food anime that maybe I can give some input on. And I was so salty those first 2 videos. And I just put them up there for the internet. Just threw them up there. I didn't promote them, didn't do anything to them. I literally just put them up for the internet to have. And I said, c'est la vie. And went away for, I don't know, maybe a month or so. Somebody found it, posted it to Reddit, and I kind of just chased it from there. And that's kind of how I fell into YouTube. Now I'm doing it full time, which is fun, exciting, stressful. But that's also because I was laid off during all of the COVID closures from my day job. So when I was working full time as a breakfast and lunch cook or lunch chef for this smaller restaurant, they ended up closing. So I just decided to dive into YouTube. And at that point, I was about a year into YouTube, and I had, a small following. Like, we had a really cool community. We had a Patreon going that was able to support me during that time. And now we're at a point to where we can expand and hopefully turn this message into a full-fledged business. So that's kind of the backstory. It all started off being salty. If you don't have salt, none of it makes sense. So
Amazing, man. I think that's so important as well. Is like, because people think that they have to come on and do this and make the, like, everyone's talking about content now, and it's like, you need to provide value, but like, providing value can be like literally just you talking to a camera, being yourself and giving your reaction. Like, entertainment is still value at the end of the day.
it's still
like,
value.
you haven't got to come on and give someone an essay worth of content in terms of like how to do something. I think that's really cool. So what's sort of motivating you now, like moving forward? Like you said, you had the Patreon community, was obviously a smaller community. You've obviously now started to grow that community and this sort of open your eyes to what can be achieved. So what's motivating you progressing this?
I think what it really comes down to is I ask myself this question quite a few times, because my channel is a roller coaster, because it started off by leveraging popular content. Eventually, popular content will go away.
Mm.
So you have to figure out how to stand out outside of that content. So the popular content was Food Wars, incredibly popular anime, especially for being a cooking anime. And so if I were to show you my analytics, you just see them do this up and down, right? And I started to realize that, like, with YouTube in particular, there are ups and downs, very high highs and can be very low lows. But as long as the lows are not as low as they once were, you're good. And that's why they call it, a marathon, not a sprint kind of thing. But now I actually have really enjoyed becoming a student of YouTube. I like the format. I like being able to share, ingredients, messages, recipes, whatever the case is, for people who may be shy or timid. And the reason for that is because growing up, I wore Dragon Ball Z shirts to school. I went and I had a Goku shirt on, and you were made fun of for liking anime back then. And now everybody loves anime. So it's the cool thing to do, I guess. But back then, it made you feel like you were an outcast or whatever. And I had my very close group of friends. We hung out, played Magic the Gathering, played D&D, watched anime. It was 5 of us, and that was it. We didn't have anybody else around. And now I want to project this message that you can do awesome things and not be ashamed to do them, whatever they may be. And same thing with cooking. Like, if you want to be a home cook, I want you to be confident being a home cook. If you want to go out there, be in the industry and be, confident in the industry, I want you to be able to do that. And hopefully I can teach you that. So now, following YouTube, I see where these massive ceilings are when you look at these massive creators and how much wealth they can make and things like that. And to me, it's not really about the wealth. It's about potentially giving back. So, like, right now, I'm actually working on a sponsor where they're kind of a meme at this point. I won't say who they are, but I'm taking most of that sponsor money. I'm buying a bunch of chef knives, and I'm just going to give them away to subscribers, because I want people to feel like, wow, like, I have this beautiful chef knife or whatever it is, and it inspires them to cook. I remember getting my first chef knife outside of culinary school, and I paid for it with my own money, and I wanted to do everything with it. I wanted to learn how to chop, dice, slice, everything. And it kind of got you going, and it motivated you. So really, for me, what YouTube has become is a way to motivate people in a positive way. And through that, for me, it's cooking. For some people, it might be fitness. For some people, it might be coding, for programming, for whatever the case is. There's YouTube channels out there that'll teach you how to clean the stove properly. I'm like, yeah, I've watched that video. That's what I really love about it. And it's the monetary side and becoming a brand and whatever is cool. But if you don't have the message to project, I think all of it just falls to the wayside. And so my message is, how do you be a badass in the kitchen and be confident doing it? And that's really all it stems from. So now I have to chase that message that I've created for myself.
Amazing, man. Amazing. And would you say that there was like one certain, like one individual video that helped you sort of clarify to yourself that this was worth it? Like, I know obviously some people can upload consistently and not really get any traction. Some people can upload, get one video, and like you said, always like looking back because they're trying to replicate what worked, what gained them a lot of traction, right? So what is your process now with creating content?
Right now, I think what I'm doing is I'm actually juggling two types of content. One where it's like live speak, where it's not a voiceover, that I'm actually hiring an editor for now to help me out with that. And that way it becomes more of, I know a lot of people, they've given me flack in the past for talking so much during videos, but it's me regurgitating everything that's happening in my mind,
Yeah.
where I feel that if I'm doing this, this is what I'm thinking in my head. Whereas the other videos are my voiceover videos. So when I saw that switch happened, it was a combination of a few things. I have a couple of videos that are approaching like the 1 million view mark, and they're vastly different. One of them is a live speak 4-minute video. One of them is a voiceover 8-minute video. But then my 18 or 19-minute voiceover recipe has proven to be the most successful video in every metric.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm trying to balance those two. But I think the video that really showed me what I could potentially do with this channel was a combination of the gotcha pork roast, where it was the most simple thumbnail and it wasn't a voiceover, in combination with one of my more recent videos, I would say, which is the Yukihira bento box, where it's the 18-minute, like people are watching a significant portion of this very long video and it's all voiceover. And if I show you my analytics, I actually looked through this the other day. There isn't one real standout video. Every single video that I have about 200 now. Every single one of them is about 0.5% of the ad revenue of my channel. There isn't one video that's made like 10% of the ad revenue. So over time, I have to consider every video I've made. What works, what doesn't work. Are the thumbnails working? Right now, my channel is essentially going into a slump. And I see it happening because it's happened before. It happened in December when Food Wars went on hiatus. So my channel had less traffic. And January, February, March, and part of April, my channel was making nothing, was very few views, no traffic. And I almost thought, I'm like, this is it. And I just kept going with the cooking content. The reason why I pivoted away from reaction content towards cooking is because it's endless. You'll always have something to make versus something to react to. So that's where I started to move away from that and say, okay, well, for YouTube, I want to teach people how to cook instead of I want to entertain people through reactions. Even though they're very informative, I try to make sure I give my piece on them, things like that. But really with YouTube, what it's shown me is that you can't look at one video. And there's a YouTuber, I think it's Veritasium. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. You've probably seen his thumbnail with why are there 96 million black balls in this reservoir, or whatever the case is. He has a very good point where he says YouTubers can't be experts because they're constantly chasing an ever-changing algorithm. Yeah. So if you're constantly chasing an ever-changing algorithm, you can never be good at any of it. Mm-hmm. So instead, you try to make every video the best video it could possibly be and better than the one you uploaded last. So that's really what I've started to love about YouTube. It's like, okay, if I change the thumbnail just this way, what's the reaction? If I change the title this way, what's the reaction? Because to me, it's like developing a menu. Not everyone is going to be happy with everything you put out, but there's going to hopefully be something for someone on your channel. And they may come back. They may come back and order an appetizer and, maybe order a dessert, an entree, whatever, another drink. And that's how I see it. So that's why for a lot of creators out there, for a lot of you guys who are potentially wanting to be creators, like Mr. B said, make 100 really crappy videos before you start learning anything. A lot of people think Mr. Beast blew up, but I'm like, he started uploading 7 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? He blew up. He's been uploading forever. There are a lot of creators on the platform and that are far less fortunate than I have been, who have been uploading and uploading and uploading. And there's going to be a point where YouTube says, oh, we figured out who to give your videos to, and they blow up. And that's where you see they came out of nowhere thing. I'm like, no, they've been here. You just haven't been paying attention. And that to me is why I think there isn't one video of mine that I really look to. It's like, no, who am I making this particular video for? I uploaded a video today where I made a 2-pound California burrito because I was really excited about Cyberpunk, and it's from Cyberpunk 2077. Maybe the video is going to be for people who want to learn how to make tortillas, for people who love Cyberpunk, for people who just want to see a really cool burrito, whatever the case is. The people who view that may not watch any of my other content, and that's okay. You always have to think, I'm making on brand. So it's still a cooking video. I'm making this video for people who enjoy cooking, who may watch my other stuff, but I'm targeting this very specific person. When people look at the very, very large YouTubers, this is all the things that I've learned. When you look at the very large YouTubers, the reason why they're big is because they've been grinding this whole time, but they also have tons of videos. So the bigger your library, the more access people have to it. If you only upload 5 videos, you're like, I'm not making $2 million a year. It's like, well, yeah, if you consider 5 videos, if you even spend 5 hours on each, you've only put in 25 hours of work. That's nothing in a career where you're expecting to potentially profit a bunch of money from. There's a lot of creators on this platform who make $50,000, $60,000 a year doing what they love. And that's not a bad thing at all. If you can manage it, like when I was laid off, I sold my car. I no longer have a car payment to get around. I bought an electric skateboard. We're a 1-car family now. So it's just, I took the extra money and I invested it into the channel. You don't need to make and look to these YouTubers who are making 200 grand a month. Just say what you need within your means and be happy with it. So I think that's kind of the message that a lot of people lose with YouTube.
Amazing.
I know it was a lot of regurgitation, but still.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Like, firstly, congratulations for just using a menu analogy for your YouTube channel in general.
It's the easiest way for me to think about it.
That was very, very good. I like that. And like, congrats with the channel. And like you said, like, I think that's going to touch so many like YouTubers that have been grinding and putting in the work. And it is truly one of those situations that you've just got to love the process, and you've got to love just wanting to make the next video better. If that next video is the one that, gets you a ton of traffic and a lot of attention, then fair play. But you've got to know that if it doesn't, then you're just going to keep continuing going and loving the process. That's really cool. I think one thing that, some YouTubers would be interested in knowing from yourself as well now is, how do you deal with like the titles and thumbnails? Because ultimately, that's what gets people to click onto the videos, right? So I love hearing different creators' opinions when it comes to creating thumbnails and obviously writing titles.
Right. And that's something that I personally struggle with right now, especially because I only have 18 months into this. So if I think, okay, 18 months, I didn't even graduate school in 18. Like, when I really think back to college, I took an accelerated 2-year program for culinary school. And that was still no breaks, nothing. You're doing 40 units every week. And that's 18 months. I haven't graduated school yet. That's how I see it. I still don't really know how to make an effective thumbnail and title. And that is because YouTube, unfortunately, Matt Pat said it best. I watch a lot of YouTube, and a lot of people are like, Paul, I see you in all the comments. I'm like, you only see me in the comments now because my account's verified. Like, you can look back, and I comment a lot because I enjoy different YouTube.
Would you, so just to jump in and dissect that a little bit, would you say that you're commenting and engaging with other accounts like geared towards your growth as well?
Absolutely. So I watch Binging with Babish. I watch Josh Weissman. I watch James Hoffman, who's a coffee guy. I love coffee. I love learning these things. I watch Guga Foods, and on the anime side, I watch Trash Taste Podcast, and I watch the guys like individual channels that they belong to. I watch Abroad in Japan, and I'll make a comment on there, commenting on the video, because I'll watch the video all the way through and I'll comment on it, because I know it's basically a creator supporting a creator. Even if it's just me hitting the like button and making a comment, it supports the algorithm. Okay. So I try to also comment in an engaging way where I make sure that even if somebody asks me a question on my comment on someone else's video, I try to answer it, because to me, YouTube it's not TV. It's still a community driven platform. No matter what anyone says, it's a community driven platform. So when I engage in other YouTubers' videos, I do see people like, oh, I just saw you comment on Weissman's video. And this happened last Sunday. I did a live stream where I just talked about my experience with wild game. Like I just had wild boar, whatever the case was. And I wanted to talk about the dish that I had and this and that. And I had gone live that day, and I had watched a Josh Weissman video that morning. I always watch about 40 minutes of YouTube in the morning while I'm having my coffee, feeding my cats. It's just my morning thing.
Mm-hmm.
Get caught up on YouTube. And someone came into my chat and was like, oh, I just saw your comment on Weissman's video. And then I saw that you went live. And so I'm just going to hang out here now. And I think YouTubers also don't like commenting on other YouTubers' videos for attention or whatever the case is. And I've kind of noticed it too, because also I don't try to do this. I don't try to get top comment. I don't care about that kind of stuff. I'm just giving my piece and that's, be done with it. But there is some blowback with like the very popular creators. If you have, Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, and if you have him comment on a Linus Tech Tip video, his comment is going to be shot up to the top. And so anyone else who may not be a certified account, they'll see their comment not as engaged as much. So I'm kind of pulling back a little bit, even though I'm like, no, I love that coffee. What did you do? How did you make this? Like, what is the deal? I need answers. And I'll make the comment and you'll see it on there. But it does engage with the community, because then you seem like a real person. And it's not just, oh, you're another shill, or you're just somebody who's just working the system or whatever the case. It's like, no, I've been on YouTube since 2007 on various accounts. Like I've been doing this for a very long time. My very first upload was essentially an anime music video back then, so I've been on the platform forever. And this is just what I've always done, is just engaging with the community in a very positive way. Don't go around being salty and trolling people, and the people who are salty and troll you back, like they're still part of the community, but you can still block them. You don't have to engage in that kind of behavior. So it is important to me that creators support creators.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And I think that's one of the most valid points is, I think I actually found your channel off of like you commenting on another video. So it just shows that obviously, I think the fact that I'm just trying to dissect this as well is like, I think the fact that you just said that you wake up and watch 40 minutes of YouTube as well is like one of the biggest things from that, is because if we get up and we're watching YouTube content, it's like you're part of the community. You're literally engaging in it from the get-go of your day. And when you're not consuming it, you're creating for it. So being in those chats and engaging with those communities is, of course, going to come full circle at the end of the day and continue to grow your following. Let's imagine that I somehow jumped into your phone or your laptop and I deleted 3 apps from your phone or your laptop. What would those 3 apps be that you'd really struggle, running the YouTube business without?
Oh, you mean things that are kind of vital to YouTube for me?
Yeah. I mean, even not necessarily YouTube, but just like your day in a life sort of thing. What are 3 apps that you use on a day-to-day basis? If I was to take away, you'd really struggle with that.
I think YouTube Studio is key on mobile. It allows me to work on the go if something happens, if I need to change an upload schedule for a sponsor or whatever the case is. That's pretty vital. YouTube itself, like I have YouTube Premium, so I use it for podcasts, I use it for music, I use it for everything, literally everything. So that would kind of suck to not have. And I think this one, the next one is kind of, I could say Chrome, I could say whatever, but I think the thing that I've been using the most recently is Notion, and it's a note-taking app. And that's because it syncs up on my computer and it's just web-based. I use that now instead of writing down recipes. I use Notion to just open it up as I'm cooking, and as I'm developing a recipe, I start adding it there. So that way it's twofold, and I can use that recipe to apply to my book later, and it's already typed out. It's all good to go. It's streamlined, whatever the case is. So I think that for me is one app that I've seriously been taking advantage of, and it's been invaluable at this point. So if you're going to take away YouTube Studio, YouTube itself, and Notion, I'd kind of be sitting there like, well, what do I do now? I don't really like Twitter, I don't have Facebook. Like I don't, those are the only socials I have Instagram, I guess, but that's just me posting pictures of my cats eating, some food I made for them or something, the occasional like burrito. So there isn't a lot of engagement in those communities for me.
Amazing. That's cool. I actually come across Notion not so long ago. I use Trello for like everything.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of people talking about it too. And that's actually one of the videos I've got coming up is I want to go live, just use it. Because everyone I spoke to that says about Notion is like, you need like 2 days to really get your head around it. And I've downloaded it in the past. And I think it's one of them apps that you sort of look at and you're a bit like, oh, God, but I think it is one of those apps that you do need a day or something to really dive into it. And yeah, I've heard some really, really good things about it.
Yeah, Notion has been something that I've replaced, Google Docs with. I've replaced Microsoft Word with it. I've replaced basically everything for it. But I also use it in a very basic way, especially for recipe design. So I'm currently working on multiple recipes at the same time. On top of that, I'm developing a restaurant recipe menu for a restaurant in LA. So I can just have everything in one spot. Once it's done, I can just share it with them. It's not a big deal through Notion. But what's great is that sometimes I'll just be on the couch hanging out with the wife and I'll be like, oh, I need to write down this idea, and just pull up Notion on my phone and just type it in. So I use it as a very basic tool. Whereas I've seen people who have full on production schedules, check marks for what needs to happen. I wish I could get my life streamlined like some of those people do. Right now, I just have like whiteboards everywhere. There's one over here with ideas. There's a calendar whiteboard, very old school. Like this needs to go up on this day, and I'm writing it. But that works for me for now. Yeah. So eventually, everything's going to be digital, so I can transfer it to other people. But I think really as a YouTuber, especially if who's somebody who does everything by themselves, except for with the editor that I work with, he's on a contractual basis. So I just send him work whenever I have it. If you don't have your life in order, it can be very overwhelming. Like my whole day was thrown off yesterday when I had an approved sponsor come through and say, hey, we need this in 6 days to review, and we need you to upload it like yesterday. Like, oh, cool. Thanks for the heads up. So now, I'm working on a sponsor video, but those things happen because they can be very valuable to your channel, in this case, monetarily. So that way I can buy a bunch of chef knives and give them to people. So I want to make sure it happens properly. So with YouTube, it's not the 9 to 5. Like I've done the 9 to 5. I've done AutoCAD work for companies where I just go into the office and I sit there and I look at lines for 8 hours and I lose my mind. This isn't that kind of job. There's a lot of YouTubers who talk about burnout, and that's because a lot of us, myself included, don't know how to turn it off. Where you wake up, you probably check your analytics or you see if anything happened overnight. Maybe you got a content strike or whatever. Last night I was up editing and typing up recipes, in my case in particular, because that's part of my job now, where I want to make sure that these are here, till 11:30 at night. And then I woke up at 6:45 to make sure that my video went up properly, today. And I think there are a lot of very high expectations with very little effort wanting to be put in. And that's where a lot of people who go to YouTube end up failing, because it's definitely not easy. You can't just make content and throw it out in the world and then hope to be here 10 years later. I've been cooking basically my entire adult life. I would like to do YouTube for another 10 years. That's how I see it. So you have to start setting yourself up for that. If you're just doing it as a hobby, that's awesome. But if you're trying to set up a brand or set up a full lifestyle for yourself, like you really have to think about these steps where once a trigger happens where you are found by YouTube, you may blow up. What happens when that happens? Maybe you have a book. Maybe people buy that book, but now it's going out to 2 million people instead of 100,000. If you didn't write that book, you won't be able to give that to people. I wrote a book at 40,000 subscribers. I hired an artist. I hired an editor. I wrote the recipes, and we have a little manga style cookbook, and now I'm making another one. But these are all things, and this is going to sound so weird because I watch anime. I have a quote. I think it's on my board. This is literally from Haikyuu, which was a volleyball anime that everyone should watch because it's fantastic. And it said, opportunities present themselves to those who are prepared. That's it. And it's literally from a volleyball anime. But I took it to heart because its opportunities present themselves to those who have prepared, not are preparing, are willing to prepare, are, going to, it's have prepared. You've done the work. And that's where we talked about earlier is the blowing up on YouTube. Those YouTubers usually did the work already. Now they're being put out there. Now they're being found, whatever the case is. So I think with YouTube, that discrepancy needs to be shown more, especially with, I know we're talking a lot about YouTube, but I find it so fascinating. But
I
the
love
YouTube
it, I love it.
yeah, the YouTube education side doesn't tell you any of this. It's not in any workshops. It's not in anything directly from YouTube. We have like the YouTube studio that kind of takes you through and says, oh, maybe your thumbnail sucked. Maybe you should change the title. It doesn't tell you to just, figure out your flow, figure out your niche and chase that. Where like I just purchased the Vid Summit virtual ticket. So I can spend 16 hours over a weekend sitting and watching talks and chats and stuff from these people who have proven themselves in the industry and just take notes all day because I need to constantly learn. So if you haven't prepared, why do you expect results? It's like going to a bodybuilding competition and you're like, all right, I haven't worked out in 2.5 years. We're doing this. Like, what are you talking about? You can't just do that. It'd be somebody coming into my kitchen who doesn't have I made cupcakes once in an easy bake oven. I would like to work in a 2-star Michelin. Like, no, you can't even wash the dishes. Please exit. Like, get out of here. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of younger people run into the issue where a lot of people want to be YouTubers, but a lot of people don't understand that I make less than minimum wage. If you really count my hours, I would make more money per hour just going and working at McDonald's at this point, especially with where I live. No one thinks about that, but it's yours, first of all. And the ceiling is infinite when you really think about it. There's no scale. The scale is mind-blowing when you think about what you can potentially do. But the floor is very, very low, super low. I didn't make a dime on YouTube for 6 months, and then I made like 3 dimes for 4 months after that. So you can't expect to just put up a video and be like, well, I made my video. I'm done. Give me my money. That's the problem I think that a lot of people are finding themselves in right now.
Definitely. And while we're sort of on the terms of like monetization and stuff like that, you've mentioned a couple of times about sponsorships. So talk to me a little bit about one, what it was like getting monetized, like, because like you said, you're putting on all of this effort and you're still trying to tick off these boxes that YouTube basically requires you to get, right? So what was it like getting that firstly getting monetized, secondly actually receiving like AdSense from it, and lastly sponsorships, because I've had sponsorships and my channel still to this day isn't actually monetized by YouTube. But that's one key thing that I always say to people is like, you could have 1 subscriber on YouTube and still earn money from it if that 1 subscriber wants what you've got to offer. So yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. How did that sort of go about?
Right. So like I had mentioned before, I had a previous channel that was monetized, but it was a cosplay and like hobby channel. So I made maybe like $50 a month off of it or something like that. And it was kind of cool to see because I was still working full time. It was like, oh, it paid for some material. I needed glue or whatever. On my channel with YouTube, you could see trends happening if you pay attention to your analytics. So I knew by, what was it? The first video went up in April. And I knew that if I have X amount of watch time and I have X amount of subscribers every week, I can see a trend and I tried to follow it. And I knew within a few months I would become eligible for monetization. What I didn't expect was how drastically monetization can change. And this is something that a lot of people also don't understand with YouTube, where your monetization can be cut in half month to month. Where last month I literally made double what I made this month. And it just because, videos are not being pushed or people are not clicking them, or because, again, Food Wars is over. So I had a very good month with a couple of Food Wars videos. And now YouTube is, as long as you're consistent, it will find you the audience. That is the job of the algorithm, just like your job is to stay on track with your content. So you have to trust the job of the algorithm most of the time if you're doing everything right. Sometimes you don't know what you're doing right, though. So that's the hard part. With AdSense, I thought to me, AdSense is almost like a bonus. It's hard to rely on AdSense, I think. You have to find another balance with monetization. If I always shoot to rely on AdSense, I wouldn't be able to plan for anything. I wouldn't be able to plan for bigger projects. I wouldn't be able to plan for, well, let me see if I can buy some new equipment for the channel or whatever the case is, because it's so finicky. So, like with all the stuff I make from Patreon, from all the supporters on that and all the perks that they get, I typically use that to reinvest into the channel. So whether or not it's, maybe I just bought some new cast iron, new carbon steel pans to do some experiments on, so I can share it with people. Like, hey, this is how a carbon pan reacts when you use XYZ on it. So that way you guys know, so you don't, and I use the Patreon money to buy things like that, to constantly make content. The AdSense allows me to essentially month to month budget for the following month. So it's like, hey, I made a good amount from AdSense. Maybe I will go buy a really nice dehydrator and then do a video about how to use the dehydrator, maybe make some cool things with it. AdSense should not be your focus unless you're a massive channel, because the channels that get, 50 million views a month, even at $2 RPM, at $2 a piece, they're making what, $50,000 a month from AdSense, whatever the case is. But to them, that's still a bonus, because I guarantee you the channels that are that big are making 4 times that with merch sales by just merchandising. Mm-hmm. And Linus Tech Tips had a very good video on how much does Linus Tech Tips or Linus Media Group make? And he just showed a pie graph. And right now it's like 45% of his income comes from YouTube, because he has a massive channel and he has multiple massive channels. But 35% comes from merchandise sales, which, if you consider that's them directly selling to people, that's still a huge portion of their income. So when you look at monetizing your channel, you can't just look at AdSense. Like you said, you've gained sponsorships in the past, and I've had the same. Like, this year has been crazy because I've had so many people reach out to me for wanting to do sponsor work, and I do pick and choose who I work with at this point. But I think with sponsor work, that gets, again, reinvested to the channel. After all my bills are paid, reinvest that money into the channel. I've probably spent half of my income this year, if not more, on things for the channel. Whether it's buying a new camera, that I finally bought a real camera instead of just using a GoPro. Bought that yesterday, finally, after however long. I bought, new pans. I bought a few other things. I hired an editor. I just paid out a bunch of money to start making my second book, to reinvest in the content, reinvest in the channel. So when you look at all of these layers, to me, I would be extremely happy if all of them could be even. That way, let's say you have 6 streams of income. If you have 6 streams of income, if one of them goes to zero, you're still making 80%. You should, if you're not doing anything stupid, you should be totally fine on that 80%, even after saving for taxes and everything like that. So with YouTube, always, always, always figure out a way to have multiple revenue streams, whether it's affiliate marketing, whether it's AdSense, Patreon, float plane, there's merchandising. There's a ton of things that you could do where you could make a living off of YouTube under 10,000 subscribers. You don't have to, you can write a course. Excuse me. There's a YouTuber, Catherine Manning. She went by the Content Bug for a while, right? Yeah. She has a great business on social marketing. And because I remember following her when we were about the same amount of subscribers, and she just blew up. But I always was blown away because her CPMs and her RPMs, so her clicks per mil, how much she got paid for 1,000 views, was always 3 to 4 times what I was making because of her type of content. So for her to say how much she was making at the time or whatever, I was just like, how? how are you doing this? And I realized, oh, it's my content. But I don't want to make content about how to make content either. I want to talk,
Yeah.
I want to make food. I want to make burritos. Like that's what I want to show people how to do.
Mm.
So with YouTube, if you have 10,000 subscribers, and let's say you had, just to make things easy, you had 1 million views that month, right? If you're making content like I am, 1 million views might pay you $2,000, whatever. If you're making content like Catherine, you'll probably get $10,000. Just that's how YouTube works, because it's all based off of advertising. So you can't say, well, I need to figure out how to make a bunch of money off of AdSense, because if you rely just on that, you're probably going to fail. And
Mm.
that's unfortunately what it is.
And I think even I've actually followed her for a while, like before she blew up as well, which is weird when you do, you look at people and you think, oh, what's happening? But they're just staying consistent with creating good quality content at the end of the day. But I think she even shows in one of her analytic reports that one of the months where she got like the lowest amount of views was when she had the highest month in terms of AdSense.
Yep.
So she said, like, there's just no, like what you said, there's no predictability with it. Like one month you could be like this, one month you could be like that. And like you said, I think that's one of the key things is to have, multiple streams of income. And it's the same like with me, and why I suggest anyone to get onto YouTube is use it as what it's there for. It's a search engine at the end of the day. So like when people are finding his videos, they're coming on and they're searching for food related videos. They're not going on and searching for how to run a Facebook page like they would with Catherine's videos. So yeah, I think that's totally relevant of making sure that you've got multiple streams of income. And what I'd suggest is using YouTube as like your traffic for all of these other services and products. And like books are really cool. And obviously you can get your merch as well that you're now selling. One thing I'd like to move on to is, you've mentioned a lot that you're going into doing some like seminars and stuff like that, but was there like a certain resource, whether it was a book or a certain YouTube channel, like you said, you're obviously watching that Catherine Manning, she talks a lot about systems and social media and stuff like that. Was there a particular book or resource that you watched in the past that really sort of opened your eyes up in terms of like running an online business?
I honestly I can't safely say there was a single book. I've read multiple. What was it? There was a book by Sean Cannell and like the Think Group.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's YouTube Secrets.
Yeah.
That one is great. Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It is great. The 4-Hour Work Week is mind opening because it doesn't even talk about YouTube. It just talks about how to not even be rich. It's how to live your life within your means, which is really cool. There are multiple books for YouTube, but there's significantly more free resources available on YouTube. Whether it's Roberto Blake, Catherine Manning, the Think Media Group. You can even watch like Graham Stephan and see what he's done with YouTube. Even though he talks about finances and stuff like that, but he knows what he's doing on YouTube. There's a reason why he's as successful as he is talking about credit cards. Like that's the thing. So I think if somebody is really interested in doing anything for YouTube, I think YouTube Secrets is probably the best resource you could get right now. And then there are a ton of paid ones that I've tried using in the past, which I won't say anything bad about anybody, but they don't stick with me. I have a very hard time buying like a workbook from a really cool creator who has been proven to do good stuff for YouTube and then sit through and work with it. I have to have that engagement. So that's why I would rather pay the $200 for an online vid summit where I can sit there and watch the seminars, take my own notes. I'll be in my chair. I'd rather be there. I'd rather have it be in person so I can communicate with people. But when you are looking to build up your brand and anything like that, if you stick to one YouTuber or one person and one creator, you're going to get a bad take because you're going to try to just replicate what worked exactly for them. It doesn't work that way for anyone on the platform. And that's why you can't be, a certified expert, I will say in quotes, for YouTube, because every single person's journey on YouTube is different from the next person. No two people will be the same at all.
Mm.
When I went to culinary school, everybody took skills, and then everybody took garde manger, and then everybody took baking and pastry, and then everybody took, French cuisine, whatever. Everybody went through the ringer. And then after that, everybody's journey is different. So you have that time period. From the set and from the get-go, everyone's journey is different on YouTube. That's why so many people get frustrated, including creators like me who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. Hopefully I can communicate well and the videos look good, and I want to constantly make better videos and higher quality videos, and, introduce maybe some nicer editing and whatever, and try to make them just the best product I could make. Because I take it to where in the restaurant industry, I always will compare YouTube to the restaurant industry, because that's what it is. A lot of people don't look at it that way. But if you really think about it, YouTube is one of those food pods with a bunch of food trucks. You're going to go around, you're going to look at the homepage or walk around the food truck area and be like, do I want a donut today? Nah, I don't want a donut for dinner. Oh, the falafels look really good. No, you know what? We're going to go with some ramen. We're going to get ramen today. You walk over to that food truck, you get ramen, right? But after the ramen, you're like, bro, I want some dessert. Let's go back and get a donut. That's how YouTube works. So when you're constantly going through the homepage, if you're targeting that one specific, I guess style of video, you're going to tunnel vision into that. And for your niche, it can work. But if you're looking for actual ways of developing your YouTube channel, if you just look into that one thing, it's probably not the best idea. So when you're looking at resources, like, yeah, YouTube Secrets is a great book, but it comes from one creator. So you should always, always, always get input from multiple areas. That's that's how I did it.
Yeah, that's so true as well. And I think that is one of the big barriers that a lot of people will sort of face at some point when creating content, is like the niche. It's like, okay, I need to create videos around this topic. I can't create videos around anything else. But yeah, I think ultimately after creating videos in different niches, like what you said, I was a personal trainer for a while, so naturally a lot of my content was geared towards people in the fitness industry. But obviously then starting your own business, everything that I was then doing was around business, so I'm then documenting and teaching around business. So I think ultimately, like, what we're trying to get to is, like, you need to be able to create content that you enjoy ultimately, because you need to be consistent with it, right? So yeah, like, you're going to have to change. And like what you said with the YouTube algorithm, like, no one knows what's going to be changing. So it's not like if you found something that worked and got a lot of views before, it's not like you can just keep creating the same video over and over again and expect it to do the same numbers. But no, I think that's really cool. Obviously, this is the Designer Future podcast. We've gone over a little bit, but I'm so glad we have, man. This has been a very, very interesting conversation. This is the Designer Future podcast. So I'd love to hear about where you're hoping to be within like the next 12 months or so.
In the next 12 months, that's, there's a lot. I'm currently going to be consulting for a restaurant out of LA, where we're trying to open up a restaurant based on anime food and like fantasy food and stuff like that. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm hoping to have 2 more books released, because I want like a volume of manga that you can put on your shelf. I'm starting a Kickstarter in the next month to get those books printed. I would love to be able to be somewhat of a philanthropist in a way, but for culinary students, I'm working on trying to work with different partners to say, hey, I want to just give culinary students knives, like make people's days better, or whatever the case is. But where I see myself, honestly, is grinding another 200 videos. That's my goal. Right. And that, that's a lot. That's 4 videos a week, basically, in a year. So I have to figure out how to streamline that. And that might be a little more than I can handle, but I will be constantly expanding my, hopefully a future team to help me with that. So I see myself doing more or less the same thing, but polishing it and constantly getting better at titles and thumbnails, educating myself on YouTube and being able to really just push the message of be confident in the kitchen, or confident in whatever you do. Even if you're confident in failing, have confidence in what you just did. And if you fail, that's fine. I just want to be able to tell people that, like, it's okay to fail as long as you constantly try to be better. That's basically it. The next 12 months, same. They're going to go by like that. And for anybody doing YouTube, anybody listening that may be doing YouTube right now, it's going to fly by. 12 months are nothing, literally nothing. And look at it year over year, month over month. That's really how you have to take all of this YouTube stuff in. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out. And make sure you love what you do. That's the most important part. If you don't love what you're doing, then find something you do love and move to that instead.
Wicked, man. Wicked. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to leave your links in the description below. Definitely go check out the channel and, of course, subscribe. And for the guys watching and listening at home, I shall see you in the next episode. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Olley.
Hollywood 6.